Right now, as you watch this, tens of thousands of American travelers are standing in security lines that stretch out the front doors of major airports. Not inside, outside, on the sidewalk, in the sun, with luggage, and no end in sight. This is not a weather delay. This is a 41-day government shutdown that has dismantled airport security as we know it. And as of today, Friday, March 27th, Congress just walked out the door for a 2-week Easter vacation, with no deal, no resolution, and absolutely no guarantee that the airports you are flying through this spring break will have enough TSA officers to keep the doors open. I am going to break down everything you need to know right now. What is happening on the ground at these airports, what ICE agents are actually doing inside the terminals, the National Guard threat, and what happens if no deal is reached. Stay with me. This is critical. Welcome to U.S. Immigration News Daily. We deliver verified, actionable updates on USCIS and visa policy every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern. No rumors, no jargon, just the facts to protect your status. Let's get straight to the facts. The information in this video is for educational purposes only. It does not constitute legal advice and should not replace consultation with a licensed immigration attorney. Immigration law is complex. If you have questions about your specific case, consult a qualified professional immediately. Let's start with what most news channels are getting dangerously wrong. This is not simply a government shutdown. It is a partial DHS shutdown. That means the Transportation Security Administration, the agency whose officers screen your luggage and verify your ID before every commercial flight, has been completely without funding since February 14, 2026. Those workers have now gone 6 full weeks without a single paycheck. Think about that reality. 6 weeks, 0 direct deposits, all while being legally mandated to show up for grueling shifts as essential government employees. Here is the devastating result as of this morning. More than 480 TSA officers have officially quit their jobs since this shutdown began. Those professionals are gone permanently. On top of that, on any given day this week, over 11% of the remaining TSA workforce simply did not come in because they cannot afford gas, childcare, or food while working without pay. At New York's JFK Airport, close to 40% of TSA staff were absent at peak. At Houston's Hobby Airport, that number approached 50%. At Hartsfield-Jackson, Atlanta, security lines were photographed stretching from the checkpoint, through baggage claim, out the main doors, and down the sidewalk outside the building. The acting TSA administrator told Congress under oath this week, "These are the highest airport security wait times in the history of the agency." Some checkpoints recorded waits of 4 hours and 30 minutes. And here is what made this week unlike any other moment in the history of U.S. airport security. The federal government deployed Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE agents, to 14 of the nation's busiest airports to manage the collapse. First action item. If you are flying anywhere this spring break weekend, Atlanta, JFK, LaGuardia, Newark, Houston, Chicago, Philadelphia, or any of the other affected airports, arrive a minimum of 4 hours before your departure. Not 2 hours, not 2.5, 4 hours. Confirm current wait times on your specific airport's website before you leave the house. Share this video with anyone you know who has a flight this week. They need this information right now. Now, what are ICE agents actually doing inside these terminals? There is a lot of confusion circulating, and I want to be precise. ICE agents are not operating X-ray machines. They are not conducting passenger screening. Under the current deployment orders, they are functioning in a support capacity, managing crowd flow at entry points, staffing exit doors, guiding travelers through congestion, and in Houston, distributing water bottles to passengers in 4-hour lines. The intent, as stated by Borders Czar Tom Homan, is to free up TSA officers from peripheral duties so those officers can focus on actual security screening. However, and this is the detail our community needs to hear clearly, President Trump made it explicit from the start that ICE agents at airports retain full immigration enforcement authority. They can make arrests. And unlike street enforcement operations, these agents are operating without masks, by direct presidential order. At airports, they are visible, identified, and authorized to enforce immigration law. What does this mean practically? If you or someone in your family is traveling through one of these 14 airports and there is any unresolved immigration status, a pending case, an expired document, an outstanding order, this is not the week to travel without first consulting an immigration attorney. Know your legal exposure before you get to that checkpoint. Subscribe to this channel right now and hit the bell icon. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern, I bring you verified information that directly affects your case, your family, and your future. Hit subscribe, hit the bell. Do not miss another critical update. Now let's talk about what happens next, because today, March 27th, is a hard deadline. Congress was scheduled to begin a 2-week Easter recess today. If lawmakers leave Washington without a deal, this shutdown drags past mid-April. If it does, it becomes the longest government shutdown in American history. Not just the longest DHS shutdown, the longest, period. The negotiations this week fell apart in real time. Senate Republicans offered a plan to fund 94% of DHS, every component except ICE's enforcement and removal operations arm. Democrats rejected it because it contained none of their demanded ICE reforms. No requirement for judicial warrants before agents enter private property. No ban on face coverings during operations. President Trump complicated the path further by tying any deal to the Save America Act, a federal elections overhaul bill that his own Senate Majority Leader said does not have the votes. By Wednesday evening, Thune described negotiations as going in circles. A final Republican offer was issued Thursday. Senate Democrats had not accepted it as of this recording. Trump's message at Thursday's cabinet meeting was direct. He told Congress they need to end the shutdown immediately, or he would take, in his words, very drastic measures. On the table, the National Guard. Trump has floated it twice in 72 hours, at a Republican fundraiser Wednesday night and on Truth Social Thursday. His exact post: he may call up the National Guard for more help. The White House confirmed discussions are underway, though no preparations are currently active. Legal scholars are already raising the Posse Comitatus Act, the federal law restricting military use in domestic law enforcement, as a significant barrier to any deployment. And here is the immigration enforcement dimension of a National Guard deployment that our community needs to understand. If military units are positioned alongside ICE agents at civilian airports, the legal questions about expanded enforcement scope are entirely unsettled. That scenario has no precedent in peacetime domestic operations. Third action item. If you are an immigrant, a visa holder, a green card holder, or a naturalized citizen traveling this weekend, document everything. Keep copies of all travel documents and immigration status documents accessible in your carry-on, not in checked luggage. If you are questioned at an airport by ICE or any federal agent, you have the right to remain calm, provide documentation, and request to speak with an attorney before answering further questions. The secondary story getting lost in all this: the net migration numbers. The Brookings Institution, confirmed by the U.S. Census Bureau, reported this year that the United States experienced negative net migration in 2025 for the first time in more than 50 years. More people left this country than entered it. The estimate? Between 295,000 and 10,000 more exits than arrivals for calendar year 2025. The White House has been promoting this as a historic policy victory. Economists see it differently. Brookings projects this will suppress labor force growth, reduce consumer spending by $60 to $110 billion over 2 years, and could push monthly job creation negative during 2026. Construction, agriculture, and hospitality are the most exposed sectors. What is not uncertain: ICE received $75 billion under the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, separate from the DHS shutdown. That is what allows ICE agents to be deployed to airports while TSA officers go without pay. The enforcement infrastructure is funded, expanding, and now physically present inside America's busiest travel hubs. Fourth action item. If you have a USCIS case pending, go to uscis.gov directly to confirm your case status. Certain USCIS operations continue on fee funding, but DHS-linked processing may be delayed. Confirm directly from the official source. What could break the deadlock? Senators Kennedy and Cruz are pushing a standalone TSA funding bill. Senator Collins suggests Trump may have authority to declare a national emergency and redirect funds to pay TSA workers without a congressional vote. The White House has not ruled it out. The TSA administrator told Congress directly, some smaller airports may be forced to close their security checkpoints entirely if staffing continues to fall. That warning was issued under oath. Fifth action item. If you experienced anything concerning during travel through any of the 14 ICE-deployed airports this week, any interaction that affected your rights or those of a fellow traveler, document it, record it if safe to do so, and contact a licensed immigration attorney or the ACLU. The legal landscape around ICE enforcement authority inside civilian airports is being actively examined. Your documentation matters. Here is a quick recap. Before we close, let's lock in everything we covered today, because this is a fast-moving story and the details matter. Point 1. Day 41 of the DHS partial shutdown. Over 480 TSA officers have resigned since February 14th. Daily call-out rates range from 11 to 50% by airport. These are the highest TSA security wait times in agency history, some exceeding 4.5 hours. Congress left for Easter recess with no deal. The shutdown could stretch past mid-April and become the longest in American history. Point 2. ICE agents were deployed to 14 airports, Atlanta, JFK, LaGuardia, Newark, Houston, Chicago, and Philadelphia among them. They are not screening passengers but are managing crowd flow and exit doors while retaining full immigration enforcement authority. They are operating unmasked by presidential order. Point 3. President Trump has threatened both the deployment of the National Guard to U.S. airports and unspecified, very drastic measures if Congress does not act. A National Guard airport deployment would be legally unprecedented in peacetime domestic operations and raises unresolved questions about expanded immigration enforcement authority at civilian terminals. Point 4. The United States recorded negative net migration in 2025 for the first time in over 50 years. Economists at the Brookings Institution project continued negative or near-zero net migration in 2026, with downstream consequences for labor force growth, consumer spending, and GDP, with construction, agriculture, and hospitality sectors most directly exposed. Point 5. Your action items. Arrive 4 hours early if flying this weekend. No ICE has full enforcement authority at the 14 deployed airports. Keep immigration documents in your carry-on. Confirm your USCIS case at uscis.gov directly. And if anything at those airports affected your rights this week, document it and contact an immigration attorney. The airport crisis this spring break weekend is unresolved. Plan accordingly. Here is the bottom line. Day 41. Congress walked out. ICE is in the airports. The National Guard is on standby. And 61,000 TSA officers are heading into another weekend without pay. Staying informed right now is not optional. It is essential. Subscribe to U.S. Immigration News Daily. Hit the bell. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Verified updates. No noise, no spin. Share this video with anyone flying this week or managing an active immigration case. They need to see this. Stay informed, stay prepared, and I'll see you in the next update.